estate broker. I had no interest in walking neighborhoods and knocking houses and, asking people if they'd let me sell their house or anything like that. So I decided to get into house flipping. And
The Abundant Wallet.
Hi, Ryan. Thank you for your time and welcome to the Abundant Wallet podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
You have a very interesting story. You have a real estate background. If you just want to kind of explain what your background is.
I came up, my family was in the restaurant, hospitality, hotel management for 3 generations in the small town that I grew up in. And then my mother was, kind of nonprofit stuff. She was involved in the Red Cross most of her life and then hospice in the later part of her life. So I came from 2 very opposite ends of the spectrum when it came to parents. Now, I got pulled into the hospitality side of things and the restaurant and hotel management until I was about 28 years old. And I did not want to work in restaurants until 1 a.m. anymore. And I decided to get into real estate. And I wasn't really interested in being a real estate broker. I had no interest in walking neighborhoods and knocking houses and, asking people if they'd let me sell their house or anything like that. So I decided to get into house flipping. And, just like a lot of other folks, you look into what's the cheapest option, and that was wholesaling. Now, the first couple of deals I did, you could call them wholesale deals, but we actually bought the properties and then resold them, for the small profit instead of just assigning contracts.
Yeah.
And, we did our first couple of flips. The third one, we lost our butts on, it was about a $35,000 loss. Big learning experience there. And for about the next 5 years, I bought houses. We flipped them, had a couple of duplexes. I sold them when we moved to Greensboro. And when I got to Greensboro and I was trying to get back into house flipping, it just didn't sit right with me anymore, the way that a whole certain demographic of people get treated, and it's the senior community. When they've been in their house for 20, 30, 40 years, and it's time for them to transition to assisted living, whether that's because of a crisis or whether, that's because they genuinely realize that they need, a little bit more help or to downsize to something smaller. Very often those houses, look like the 90s and the 80s and the 70s. A lot of times there's not anything structurally wrong with them. You might have a 15-year-old HVAC, but you have wholesalers and investors who target these folks who haven't looked at the value of their house in 10 years, so they don't know it's worth $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 more, depending on where you are in the country. And the wholesalers, especially, the folks who watched a weekend course on YouTube, they're out knocking on people's doors and offering the lowest lowball offers they can. So my job now is to educate on the real estate side. I do carry a North Carolina real estate broker's license now. Not your typical realtor, but my job is to educate the homeowners, the seniors, and the adult children of those seniors on all those predatory tactics so that they can make the best decisions when it's time to move, along with a few other things that we'll get into.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like I said before, I think a lot of the elderly are lost, and maybe the adult children are lost too. And it's great that you're an advocate for them and for the family. How do you go about educating them? Do you have a process, or is there a system in place that you?
I do have a system in place, and majority of it, you can get it all for free. Kind of like you do on your podcast. You talk about everything over time, so you can find most of my material on YouTube. A video or so at a time. But I have a blueprint that's put together. It's only $47, and it's 19 modules, and it's from the very beginning of. And it can be when something happens, like mom fell and we're in the hospital and we're trying to figure out what to do and where the power of attorneys are and which power of attorney is the right power of attorney to be able to make decisions in the hospital. And then, or you're just planning. You're planning for 6 months from now or 2 years from now. So the whole first 2 modules are about figuring out where you are in this process. And then we talk about everything that happens, stuff that happens when you're in the hospital, stuff that happens when it's time to move, stuff that happens when it's time to get rid of the stuff in the house. A lot of these older folks have been in there for 20, 30, 40 years, and they have 20, 30, 40 years worth of stuff. So yes. when it comes time we talk about how to donate, what to throw away. If it's not worth more than $50, it's not worth trying to sell. We spoke about it before. Move managers, senior move managers cost $8,000 to $10,000. But if you're not in a crisis stage and you have 3, 4 children, and then you have 4 or 5 grandchildren, teenage grandchildren, they might help you move instead of paying $8,000 to $10,000 to that senior move manager. And we just hire 2 men in a truck for $2,000, depending on where you're moving. Logistical things like that, deciding, where you're at asset wise. Do we need an elder attorney and an estate attorney to help you move some assets into some trust, to help you plan for Medicaid and assisted payment, for assisted living? And that is my entire goal, is to help people get from whether they're in this crisis stage or this planning stage to the end. Sometimes that's aging in place. But I mean, another caveat in this blueprint is aging in place versus moving to, I won't say assisted living. A lot of folks move into independent living and, gradually get to assisted living. I don't know how many of your listeners have been into these communities nowadays, but it's like little resorts for elderly people. A lot of them. But aging in place can sound great when your parent is 70 or 75 and they're doing really well.
Right.
Nothing is wrong right now. But at 70, and then in 5 years you're 75 and you can't get up and down the stairs anymore, and you can't get over the tub into the shower anymore, you start ripping out tub shower combos and putting in walk-in showers. You start putting in chair lifts, your big expenses. Plus, when aging in place, you have to look at the age of the other stuff on your house. When's the last time the roof was replaced? I mean, you're $20,000. When's the last time your HVAC was replaced? Is there more than one HVAC? So a lot more cost has to go into it than just your mortgage payment, or just even considering if the house is paid off.
Yeah. You definitely want to, especially if you're retired and, have a in-place living, you really have to weigh those costs. And, the rest of us who are part of the workforce may be in the back of our mind, but I think it's something that we have to prioritize to help our families in need.
Another thing about aging in place is, the older you get, and I mean, no matter what, and you live in your house, you tend to kind of miss things, but you start to not ignore things, but you miss things. You miss the leak under the kitchen sink, or you miss the toilet in there that's running underwater and rotting the floor away. So, I mean, there can be a lot more, little issues that turn into really big issues because we decided to age in place. And 5 years later, there's $50,000 worth of work to be done before you can sell the house, or you take 50 cents on the dollar for the house.
Yeah. These are all great things to kind of keep your eyes open and consider. So I guess after someone reads or goes through the modules through your course and the blueprint, I would imagine they're still not experts, but they know a lot more. What's the next steps? Is that something?
Well, the $47 blueprint, like I said, it's kind of DIY. It's really what you want when you're trying to plan 6 months to a year or two out. But okay. I mean, when you get to the end, or before you even spend the $47, you can spend, $297. And when you get the blueprint again, and you can read through everything. And then the 19th module, there's an additional module in the, premium version with the consult with me. And it's a long questionnaire. And I ask a whole abundance of questions about you, your life, your kids, your grandkids, what your aspirations are, what you want to do, age in place, go to senior living. What's the condition of your house? What year is it? Do you know what the value is? A big questionnaire. And then I go through that and I consider everything that you've written in your questionnaire. And then we hop on the phone for about an hour and a half and we go through the plan. I plan it out for you how, in my expert opinion, things should go, and then we can make tweaks here back and forth. And then they have 90 days of support after that with me, where they can call, text, email me, anything. I only advertise email on my website, but they can call, text, email me, any issues, anything like that. So, I mean, for $300, you get a plan from me and you get 90 days of support. And
that's incredible. I mean, that's one-on-one consulting for 90 days. That's unheard of. Sounds like a phenomenal deal.
More important for me to get the information out there and help as many people as I can than make $2,000 off each person. Yeah,
for sure. No, that's great. Typically, when people do you think they have to be in a certain place after they're in the modules to where they take on your help for 90 days?
I think a lot of people buy it or look at it or even read my free guide. Even the free guide that I get, that I give for just giving me your email is a ton of information. And that leads people to purchase that $47 blueprint. And then it's like, well, okay, I don't need this right now. Then 6 months later, when something happens, and it doesn't even have to be their direct relative, but they'll say, I read from this guy, he had this blueprint on, and there's this module on, maybe it's a friend and they're having issues and they're worn out because they're the caregiver for their elderly parent. I got an entire module about being the caregiver and taking care of yourself in addition, and leaning on other people for help and utilizing those tools that are out there, like me, that they can help you with things. And then, like I said, everybody else has their lane. I can put you with the senior placement specialist, the one who's going to point you in the right direction, not just the highest commission for them. So I think I do sell a lot of them that way because I try to re-engage with everybody, but not everybody's in that kind of crisis mode. I want to help as many people plan ahead of time as much as I can, but 9 times out of 10, it's usually when it's an urgent or crisis situation. It's like, we need some real help now, But I mean, that's it. That's what everybody does, in every aspect of life, not just this.
This is an amazing service that you provide. This is something I think everyone is going to need. So I appreciate.
The only thing that I don't handle, and I'm hoping that I can pull my wife into this with me at some point,
Sure.
is what to help people do with their pets when they have to move to independent living and they have to figure out what to do with pets. That is the only thing that I don't help cover in some aspect. And my wife she loves our 2 beagles, and I do too, but she's the dog person.
Yeah.
And I hope to bring her into the business at some point. And that's a big goal of ours, is to buy some land at some point. And, maybe we could be some fosters for some people.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, that's pretty cool. It sounds like a niche within a niche, and maybe a couple different businesses there. So very cool. It also, kind of going back to your real estate broker, it seems like you still kind of delve into that for the most part. What's your current?
What is my role as a broker now?
Well, yeah, not just that, but like even as an investor, like what do your strategies look like today?
Today, I am looking to get into commercial. I want to buy commercial buildings, and I don't want to buy the building where, the Belk and the Macy's are in. I want to buy the little building that has the restaurant and the nail salon, the little dog grooming area, park. When I first got into house flipping, I had a partner, and this was his exact strategy. He had a lighting business all of his life, and then he bought a commercial building and then a commercial building. And by the time I started working with him, he had 13 of them, and they brought in some amazing cash flow for him. Now, he was at a point in life where he paid for all of them. He didn't finance any of them, or he had paid them all off. And that is my goal. I don't want to do tenants and toilets and residential anymore, but I still will do a flip here and there. And I typically buy from tired landlords or the adult children whose parents have passed away, who live across the country and don't know what to do with the house. But I'm very forthcoming about, my lower price. I tell them exactly what I need to make on the deal to make it worth me doing it. And then, what I'm going to have to put into it to do it, versus what I'm trying to protect these people from is the wholesalers offering, $50,000 on a $150,000 house. And then they've got a $40,000 wholesale fee baked in there.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So I mean, like I said, there's a place for wholesalers, and I do believe it's in the tired landlord space or the inherited property space. I do not think wholesalers, it is not fair to the elderly people who don't have any knowledge on what their house is worth to walk in and tell them, we'll give you $150,000 on your house when it's worth $300,000.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. For any investor out there, it's, the numbers have to work, and especially if if the seller is elderly and they're not sure, it's nice that they have someone like you to help them walk them through that.
Well, I mean, a lot of the older folks, and then I know the stigma that comes along with realtors. I mean, they're salespeople. Nobody wants to deal with a salesperson until they need the salesperson, But I mean, somebody needs to be there for these older folks to get on the computer and go on my website or go on some other investor's website and look at this calculator and figure out what their home is worth now, or talk to somebody like me, and they can talk to me and I'll say, look, let me call a realtor for you and let me get that realtor to give you a CMA, in your area. Because I'm in the MLS in the Triad here in North Carolina. I can't pay to be a member of every MLS, even in North Carolina. It's expensive. the friction point is a lot less with me because I don't have anything. I do have my $47 blueprint that I'd like for you to buy, but I don't have anything to sell you. I'm not selling you on a senior living. I'm not selling you on using me to list your house. I'm not selling you on my move management services or my attorney services. I'm saying let me help you find the best option. And it may be selling to a wholesaler. Well, let me call a local realtor who is a senior real estate specialist, and let's get some comps on the house and then make some decisions. Because I mean, the comps in the neighborhood might say $300,000, but your house is 40 years old and dated from 40 years ago. So I mean, if we're looking at a $50,000, markdown, let's weigh that before we look at the wholesaler's offer that's $100,000 less.
Yeah, maybe the finishings are just so outdated it's not up to that level on the CMA.
And if they decide to list with that realtor will pay me a referral fee. Now, if we decide to go with a cash buyer, me being a realtor, I can't accept commissions from that person, but that's the nature of the business. Some people will use a realtor and I'll get paid that way. If not, they did my blueprint or my premium consult and I got the information out there and they got the help they need. So.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. So how do you think, either investors out there or even you yourself for flips or even some commercial real estate, how do you typically fund your deals?
At this point, I'm at a point where I can pretty much self-fund my own deals. But I do have that old partner from back in Moore County. He's a little bit more retired now than he was when I used to work with him, but I'll still do a deal with him from time to time just to, kind of shoot the breeze with him and, but I mean, he's fun. He's fun to work with. He'll fund it. Back when I couldn't, he would fund it 100%. I'd get all the work done. He'd come and put lights in because, like I told you, he ran a lighting company, so he enjoyed coming putting in all light fixtures and stuff.
Nice.
And we would split everything 50-50 on the back end. So that was a really cool setup
That's
we
cool.
had. I know
Cool.
that's quite a bit more than you would generally pay for hard money, but I mean, you can't buy that kind of relationship with hard money.
No, definitely not. No, that's great. And that's kind of where I was going. So obviously you are self-funding your deals with no issue. Is there a container or a place that you leave your capital in that might be to your advantage in terms of, waiting for that deal to make an offer on?
I keep the money with a lady over at Edward Jones.
Okay.
She's kind of, been our family person 20 years and she handles my dad's stuff and they're retired. My dad sold a few businesses. That restaurant hotel business we were in, it was right next to a main highway. So while the buildings were beyond their use, the land was worth some money. So
nice.
She handled that stuff for us.
Yeah, so that's great. So while you're waiting to fund your deals, your capital is growing and you just take a loan or withdrawal. So you're earning money on both the front end and the back end. That's great.
And I think that's more along the lines of what your podcast is about, I believe, isn't it? Is, growing money.
Yes. So yeah, it's wealth building, just, putting more money in your pocket. Not, if you don't have the capital, which you're not a part of, you don't need to pay extra interest to lenders or to banks just to borrow that money. A lot of people that I work with kind of open their eyes to privatizing their own bank, which is a specific financial vehicle. And, it's basically being their own bank and funding their deal from their own pot of money, so to speak.
I think that's the smartest thing because like a lot of people in my younger days, I did some stupid stuff with debt and, bought the wrong things and financed the wrong things and, made mistakes. And I've learned from that. And I don't borrow money anymore. I'm lucky to be at a point where, we're in that position. But I mean, until I get to, that, commercial property that I'd have to borrow money for, I don't. I drive a 10-year-old truck. My wife drives an 8-year-old Jeep, and they're both paid off. I don't have debt, especially not bad debt.
No, that's amazing. That's what it's all about. Living below your means so you can afford to live and, the lifestyle and grow wealth, while you're sleeping. And it seems like you're doing all those right things. So that's
It's gonna, I mean, I look older than I am, but it's gonna allow me to do what I want to at 50 and not have to, wait until I'm 65 to retire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying I will retire, but I'll be able to, essentially right now, do what I want when I want
Yeah.
to. Yeah.
That's the name of the game.
That's right.
You work hard enough to afford the the luxuries and the things that you wouldn't otherwise do, but you have income producing assets, so that's there's that, and then there's the generational wealth, which is the legacy component as well. So yeah,
because what is it, by the third generation, most generational wealth is gone. I absolutely love the 2026 GMC Denali truck, but I'm not going to buy it. Maybe in 15 years, but not right now. It's like I told you before, I'd like to move to Clearwater, Florida, but that's about another 10 years down the road.
Yeah. No, that's another good point. Like you're delaying the gratification because you know what buying assets does for you, and it buys you freedom, it buys you time, and
And I made the terrible mistakes when I was younger, and a lot of people don't make those awful mistakes that I did, but that's what I needed to do to be able to come out the other side and get where I'm at today.
That's great. What do you think most investors misunderstand about money or financing?
When you say investors, do you mean like house flippers, or people who buy to buy and hold?
Yeah, either or. Yeah.
I would say the thing that most people, and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, is I'm gonna buy a house and I'm gonna rent it out and enjoy the cash flow. And even if you buy the house with cash, I don't think you're gonna outpace what your financial advisor could do with that money. But if you were to finance, say the houses in my neighborhood are $300,000 to $400,000, they got a bunch of them got bought up by a big company called First Key Homes during COVID, and they pushed the prices up. But just say you financed a $300,000 house. What's the debt service on that? Adding in interest, not interest, insurance and taxes. Are you even going to be cash flow positive anymore?
No, I haven't seen it.
Nothing for CapEx, or for when the roof goes, or the HVAC goes, or the dishwasher leaks and ruins the entire floor. I tell people, if you can't buy 10 in all cash, or with at least 20 or 30% down for all of them, don't even think about it. Because you're going to take that $400 or $500 if you've got $400 or $500 left over for cash flow, and you're just going to spend it. Then you're going to have an $8,000 flooring problem because the dishwasher leaked all weekend long.
Yeah, exactly. And there's deals out there, commercial space, other asset classes. So I think it's time people maybe look at some of the harder barriers to entry, do their due diligence, and look at the numbers, obviously, and make sure that they're buying something that is going to cash flow. Maybe not from day one, but maybe they have to do some renovations, but like it has to be lucrative enough to where it's going to cash flow. Otherwise, you're just buying another property that is a liability, right? So
that's right. That's right. And you might not even consider it a liability, if you're getting $300 or $400 or $500 a month out of it,
right?
But it will be eventually. Something's going to happen, and that's what I mean. My parents, my dad, and my grandfather, they built behind this hotel that they built in 1994. They built this little community of townhomes, and they kept about 10 of them as rental properties over the years. Now, they might have made $500 off of each one each month. But every time somebody moved out, you're spending $5,000 repainting the place, recarpeting the place, or, putting in new countertops because somebody destroyed it for mica. But there's always little things. But they came out the other side of it 25 years later when they sold them, appreciation, So
yeah,
there's a lot of different ways to think about it. But the other thing that bothers me is the people who try to get into investing and, again, jump straight into wholesaling, because there's so many gurus out there selling you can do wholesaling and make all this money with none of your own money, and you don't have to put the $10 earnest money down to buy somebody's entire property. And like I said, there's legitimate entire wholesaling companies out there, but these people who are selling these weekend courses, getting people to go tie up people's property, because you're hurting them on the back end. You're tying somebody's property up for too much money because you don't know how to do it, negotiate a good deal yet. You told them you were going to buy it when you're not the buyer, which is unethical. And
Yes.
then you tied them up for 30 or 60 days. And then after 60 days on day 59, you go, I couldn't find a buyer. Sorry. Good luck. And then this person who was counting on it being sold has to start all over again. So, I mean, there's a lot of little nuances in wholesalers. And, you know, as much as I'm really pushing out on social media now, I expect to start getting a lot of flack back from some people, but I can handle it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like you said, they're like selling the dream, and it's not all, perfect of what people see. I like to be transparent, and, like you said in the beginning, we both had some losses or some challenges along the way, and it's good to talk about that because not everything's perfect and not everything is a home run from day one. So like, let's talk about the challenges that we face and how to overcome that. And maybe the next person who's, maybe new in the industry can take that to heart and look at that and just say, I can learn from this. So,
well, the third house we ever did, we had technically wholesaled two, but we bought the house with our money, and then we resold them, within the first week. For one was $10,000, one was $15,000 in profit. And then I'll say the third deal, we actually bought it. We spent about $60,000 remodeling it. It was about halfway between a gut job and a lipstick on a pig job. And we took that wall out, and it had some beautiful hardwood floors, and we redid. So we structured some things, but we didn't gut the house. And we came out about $62,000 ahead on that one. And then the third one, it was a 1927 house.
Okay.
And I was just excited because we had another deal in the pipeline, and we actually bought the house at a decent price. I say that we probably should have paid zero for that, but we bought it for $30,000, and I didn't have an inspection. I just thought I knew everything at that point. Boy, was I wrong. We got into that house. There was asbestos wrapped in all the pipes under the house.
Really? Okay.
To be used as an insulation. We had redrawn some property so the guy could keep his big property and pond behind it.
Okay.
When we redrew the property, and after we closed on this is all after we closed on it, we owned it. We took the septic tank away from the property we bought. So we had to put in a new septic system, which was, what we were going to do anyway. We had to because it was such an old house. But then we get to the end, and all we needed to do was just get this house on the market and get it sold. This was before I met my partner that we do deals with, and I was in with another guy, and we had both just borrowed hard money, at 12, 13%, and we were already going to lose money. Of course, we had to put up some money to be able to borrow the money. And then at the very end, the county comes in and says, well, your old well is too close to that old septic system, so you're going to have to dig a new well.
Oh, wow.
I was like, all right, well, that couldn't be too dang much. Or was I wrong? It's 450 feet deep and $13,000 later.
Okay.
So we ended up about $35,000 negative on that house. So if I could say anything to anybody new, when you're ready to do your first flip, not a wholesale deal, pay $350 for a home inspection. I don't care what you think that home inspector's job is to find the stuff that you don't see. They will crawl all under the house, all in the attic, all over the roof, and all over that house to find every single thing wrong with it. And then you can adjust your asking price.
Yeah. You might get some concessions because things are broken or things are not fixed. So,
that there were a few times in the very beginning where I overextended us way too hard, and things could have gone a lot worse than they did. So I would just tell people, be very, very careful. Hard monies, be a good steward of other people's money.
Yeah.
If you've got a partner and, they're funding the majority of the deal, or like my partner where they fund all of it, be a good steward of their money, get the deal done, get their money back to them, and they'll keep working with you. I see so many people who are so quick to argue over $300 or $400, but I'm like, you've got an amazing partner, just be a good steward of other people's money. If you're going to partner with them, if you're getting into investing and house flipping, even the hard money folks, most of them The ones that I deal with, the ones that I could call right now, it's him and one other guy. They lend out. They borrow people's money, pay them 4%, and then lend the money out of 12 and collect a little something in between.
Nice. Yeah.
That's still somebody else's money. It's not Bank of America's money.
Yeah. It's not guaranteed.
I wouldn't say, screw Bank of America's money, but,
No, that's true. It's nothing is a guarantee in life. And, if it's me lending the money, like do the inspection and open the lines of communication with your partner. Like, if you have that conversation and I'm the limited partner, I'm like, no, don't chintz on that. Get the inspection, like you said, well worth the money. So
the other thing is an appraisal. I mean, it's another $300. And, most appraisers, they appraise houses. Generally, they're ready to move in houses. They go for the bank to do an appraisal to tell the bank that this house is worth this much money. So you need an appraiser who understands that you want a price of what it's worth right now, but you also want a price of what it's worth once you're done with what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not every appraiser, but you can find a few of them, in your local area who understand the investor side of it.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think, whether on the commercial or the residential side, that is just because the economy is a little tough right now? What do you think is going to give you that cash flow? Like you said, you're looking at commercial storefronts and offices and stuff like that. I feel like that's a pretty.
I would be looking around hospitals, medical buildings, things that don't typically, move, and they're stable businesses. The other thing is, the little, I won't say strip centers, but little buildings that might have like a little restaurant bar in it, and then it might have like a nail salon, and then like a little tobacco shop or a vape shop. Those types of little buildings that, wherever I'm living, I can still go maintain a little bit. I can do the stuff that I can do, but it still runs on the triple net leases where, the tenant is making the payments on almost everything, or at least some of almost everything. Whereas, like this house, if I was to rent this house out, my tenant's not going to pay my taxes and my insurance. Not something like a triple net lease. It can be. So, like I said, I'm not really looking in the residential area. If I was, it would be at the beach, and it would be probably 6 months to a year from now, because the beach is struggling. The beach, especially on the condo side of things, the HOAs have gotten out of hand. They've gotten way too expensive.
Yes, I agree.
So I'm not looking at buying condos, but you got a lot of people who are looking to get rid of things because their Airbnbs are not putting off the cash flow that they thought they were going to get when they buy. So if I was to look at anything residential, it'll be down there, and then try to kind of ride things out until they come out the other side, and Myrtle Beach is popular again. I do think whatever political side of things you are on, I do think that the tourism in Myrtle Beach has been hurt because of the political climate from Canada and from the north to Myrtle Beach. So it has really hurt things there. So I think there's some opportunity coming, and probably already there, to buy some things, to buy and hold some things.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I feel like even Airbnb, like you said, it's not what it was when it first came out. Like there's stricter rules, there's things that you have to get in place that maybe when it initially started, it wasn't even thought of. But yeah,
the thing is, Airbnbs used to be, the whole idea was you either got a whole lot more space or you were cheaper than a hotel. That's just not the case anymore. You get $100 a night Airbnb, ends up being $250 a night when you add on all the fees at the end. People are going back to hotels. That's the honest. That is what is happening. Before my dad and all of us got out of the hotel business, that is what is happening. After COVID. But the last Airbnb me and my wife did, it was $70 a night, and then 3 nights ended up being $550.
No, yeah,
my wife cleans that place better than any cleaner's going to clean it before we walk out the door.
Yeah,
but they're still going to charge me a $300 cleaning fee, and that's the thing with Airbnb. And I just say they got too greedy. And that might be actual Airbnb or the owners or both.
Yeah. So I remember going on vacation with my girlfriend in Italy a few years back, and the same thing happened. We did an Airbnb, but at this point, we're like, it's worth the extra money to spend for the hotel because of the experience that we had. So trying to think of anything else that might be lucrative on the residential space or commercial. I know Pad Split is doing a lot of cool things with, or assisted living facility where you can charge your tenant per room as opposed to, everything at once. But
The other thing that I've seen a little bit of now is like the recovery houses, like the houses where people come out of rehab or recovery, and they need to be in like the housing situation where they put 2 or 3 people to a room. I don't know exactly how they make money. I don't know if you get paid by the state or the organization that runs it, but I've heard that, like you said, charging by the room or charging by per person in the room, with one little 4-bedroom house, you can do a lot better on. That's what I've done a little bit of reading on and heard a little bit about. I can speak to it a little bit. I never got real bad, but I used to have a problem with drinking, so I gave that up part of my life, and everything just got 10, 100 times better. I won't harp on that, but
I think that's good. I think there's another space, maybe midterm, where you talked about medical buildings, but like I feel like if you have a midterm, like a traveling medical professional, if you will, that needs a place for 6 months to a year, and they get a housing allowance, so it's not really based on the economy. They're getting well paid and overpaid because they're doing the traveling, so they're using their company's money to get a nice place. So,
well, I mean, there's a couple other things there residential that I never really got into because before Greensboro, I didn't live in a big city. Was like over in Raleigh. I mean, you have Duke, Chapel Hill, NC State. You have a lot of colleges. You have a lot of the housing over there where you can charge, $450, $500 per kid living in a house.
That's true. I have
stuff.
Yeah. So like, I think one of my first investment properties with my partners is across from a small college in Texas. It's like a single family house, but it's 6 bedroom, 6 bathroom, student housing. Yeah, I think that's another good one. It doesn't really go off the economy or necessarily. It's based on the enrollment off that school.
The only caveat is I talked to a lady who did this big time over in the Raleigh area. She said that when you rent to these kids, you've got to make sure that their parents are the co-signers.
Yeah, you need to get guaranteed.
And that sounds like a given to me and you, but somebody who's listening and decides to get into that, they need the parents need to be co-signers too. Because I mean, you get these kids that get all this grant money and they're like, yeah, we'll pay you. And I mean, that sounds good until they trash your house.
Yeah. Because like the last thing they're going to do if they have like free money is pay the rent ahead of time, right?
And I mean, even if they do, I mean, 4 to 5 of them will trash the place while they live there.
Right.
I mean, you need to be able to go tell the parents, look, this $10,000 in damage is going to hit your credit, or you're going to have to pay for it.
Yep. That's one thing. I don't care how old you are. If you're going full-time school, like definitely get those parents as co-signer for sure. Yeah.
We could go down a whole nother rabbit hole about, kids going to college and how much free money they get at their age that you or I couldn't go ask a bank for, but that's a whole nother podcast for a whole nother time.
That's true. Well, yeah, this has been a great conversation. Really enjoyed talking to you. If people want to get a hold of you with regards to, helping elderly relatives or friends or family members.
Riggins Strategic Solutions.com, RIGGINS strategicsolutions.com. And again, I didn't speak much, and I know we're running out of time, but I didn't speak much to the app that I developed because it's still relatively new, and it works, but I'm working out kinks and bugs and stuff. And of course, everybody's data is very secure, but it's a check-in app where your parent can just hit the button and it sends you a text, so you don't have to call them or text them or worry about them. If they don't buzz you or text you, hit the check-in button by a certain time, it sends you, the adult child, a reminder to check in on your parent. But I've got 2 AI assistants in there. One built for the senior, for like their daily chat assistant, and then the other one is built for the adult child to help with the transition. So you could ask my AI named Maggie and Senior Safe any question about the blueprint, any question about senior transitions, and she will answer it the way I would. That's how I've trained that AI to work. So you don't have to buy my blueprint. You could download the app. It's free for the first 2 weeks, and then you can decide what tier you want to pay for. You can spend 2 weeks working with Maggie and get all the answers you might think you need. But Riggins Strategic Solutions.com and seniorsafeapp.com is where you can go to find more about the app.
Okay. So that they don't necessarily have to, like you said, buy the blueprint. If they buy the app and they're already going forward with putting one of their relatives in senior care, sounds like that's a nice go-between.
Well, I mean, when you sign up for the free guide on my website, I put you into my dashboard where my blueprint is, and I give you module 0. Module 00 you get as your starting point module. And I have the free starter guide that kind of is a real summarized each module. And there's a lot of other things in there, like, the cash buyer beware guide, what happens, what to do if mom falls at 2 a.m. There's a lot of free material there. And I'm adding to that, as days go by. But again, you can find all of my material out there broken up in pieces. But if you want it all together, spend $47, and then if you really want my help, spend $300 and we'll spend some time together on it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Well, again, Ryan, thanks so much for joining. It was a pleasure to have you on. Yeah, you're welcome.